All right, well, welcome to the next week of our Career Chat series. This week is Project Management with Taylor Kearney. Taylor, we appreciate you coming and joining us today virtually from Kentucky. Taylor, why don't we start off just getting a little bit about your background in project management?
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for inviting me here to join the call. So to give you a little bit of background of my experience in project management, I have a little over 6 years of experience in just project management alone, where types of companies I learned and grew my experience was in supply chain and sales and operations. I've worked inside a creative agency working with national brands on their product launches, and then also financial institutions, which is where I'm at right now. And so to put in the scope of the types of projects I worked on in my career, I led and coordinated and set up new lines of business inside organizations like the e-commerce channels, subsidiaries, jump-starting an insurance agency within an organization, the trust division, worked on mergers and acquisitions, brand campaigns, data analytics platform, construction projects, system launches, and also software development. So basically, everything you can imagine that would be considered a project, I have probably done in my short 6-7 year lifespan. So, you know, the most recent thing that I've been getting myself involved in is also changing infrastructures and change management within organizations by introducing a PMO, or also known as a project management office, and incorporating project management methodologies and processes and methodologies in organizations to make projects operate more efficiently and make sure that the organization and its stakeholders get the results that they're expecting on projects. I've done that with one organization already, and this is my actually second organization I'm a part of. That is, I'm basically recreating another PMO in this organization as well.
Yeah, so you're the Director of Corporate Projects for Commonwealth Credit Union. And you said you created this project management office. That means you have a team that's working for you, or how does that work differently from a normal project management role?
Right, so there's all different types of project management offices. You have like directive PMOs, you have supportive PMOs, and it really kind of depends on the organizational makeup, like how the infrastructure and how the departments work on projects. And from there, you need to work with stakeholders and build that in. Now, there's some organizations that don't even have a PMO. They don't have like true project management as I define it. But yet there are project managers. And so I typically organize project management in two types and this is based off of the industry we see now, whether it's Apple or Microsoft or credit unions and banks and manufacturing companies. You have like your general project managers who, like me, have worked on any kind of project. They're the team members that if a department or a executive needs something to get done, we're the ones that are trying to manage it from a project perspective. And then you have like service organizations or business to business, or even internally, they might have maybe not a project manager title, but maybe implementation manager or solution architect, or any number of different types of job titles, but it's all project management. And maybe they're just handling a piece of the project delivery, where general project managers often manage the very beginning, where contracts are signed or research and development is done, and then carrying that solution all the way out to its finish to what the stakeholders expect.
I think most people are familiar with the concept of projects, but with that said, for our students that aren't as familiar with the role of project management, how would you define that, and how would you describe the role that project management plays in most organizations?
In most organizations, I define it the way I define it, and then from how organizations generally define project management. I'll start with how I define it first. I think the role of project management to me is the art of managing and solving problems and consistently delivering value to stakeholders. And that could be the executives, if it's their projects that are tied to strategies, or maybe we have some upcoming system upgrades or operational processes that need to be revamped and done. But from an organization standpoint, project management is handling projects. It's exactly how it's defined. Oh, you're a project manager, you're going to manage projects. And they all have different types of definitions of what a project even means too. So it's something that's ambiguous yet also defined depending on what kind of organization you work for.
What would be one of the more challenging types of projects that you've worked on since you've started in this field?
Since I started in this field, I mean, they all have their challenges. You never should go into project management expecting to have everything laid out for you, all the information up front. A lot of that is just constantly elaborating your project plan and handling issues and people and resources and things like that as they come up. You never start off with a full plan for any project. Some of my more challenging ones were things that I was not an expert in that kind of field. Like when I started project management, I was a general project manager, and I didn't have a background in IT. I didn't have a background in marketing or finance or accounting or construction. Yet I still did those projects. So they were all challenging in their own way. And it really makes a difference of having a plan where you plan to fail, you don't fail to plan, which has a huge dramatic effect of, even with someone who doesn't have the background experience of managing those type of domain knowledge projects, you're vastly more successful in implementing them, taking a more planned approach.
Okay. As a project manager, I know that your days can vary depending on the project and which stage of the project that you're actually in. But to the best of your ability, can you just kind of describe what a typical day looks like for you?
Sure. Putting out fires, absolutely. Some days it's just one issue after another. I don't work on just one project. I work on several projects all at the same time. So a lot of my time is spent communicating next steps to teams and being organized on providing the correct information at the right time for different teams that have different responsibilities, different experience levels, specialties, so that we can continue to move everything forward and really try to avoid and mitigate delays to timelines in projects. Some of these tasks and projects are critical, and so those are the ones that take priority in communicating to all the different stakeholders, from an executive level all the way down to the ones that are going to carry out the operational processes of what that project's going to deliver. I also spend a lot of my time analyzing project progress and seeing where we are at in the project compared to where we should be according to the plan. So there's a lot of different types of analytics that goes into projects that I spend my time on, because this helps me make good decisions of, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's how we pivot. Here's how we, what our next steps should be based off of what I can tell of, how well are we managing the project and all the different deliverables and tasks. Mm-hmm. And then also, as those problems come up, I mentioned the issues that arise every day. I mean, it's not every day, but it's my responsibility also to help lead the team, and not to be the only person that comes up with the issue, but work with them on how they can find the answer themselves to that issue, so that we can move past it and keep progress moving forward.
All right. You've really become well known for getting the job done and delivering that value that you said was an important part of being a project manager. And I think that has made you a highly sought after professional. But what would you say were the keys to your success? How are you able to consistently deliver?
I think the keys of my success was a lot. There's a lot of different things that I worked at personally. Being a successful project manager, you have to consistently deliver value and be able to manage ambiguity. Like I said earlier, you don't get all the information, you don't get all the facts up front, and you have to still be able to manage timelines, manage budgets, manage people, and that is often something that traditional project management they overlook. It's like, well, you have more of an authoritative structure from traditional project management. You need to do this and do it when I tell you to do it, and no ifs, ands, or buts. But in reality, that's just not how it is. And culturally, our world has changed so much where people should be over processes, and so you need to make sure that you plan through that. And that took some time for me, and I learned a lot of. I probably started off early in my career with more analytics and task-oriented mindset. But then as I learned how to build relationships well with team members who had all different levels of skill sets, it really started to shift my trajectory from just being a project manager to then also being a project leader and moving me into positions of opportunity to continue to grow my career and manage more teams, more types of projects, because you have to have people, you have to surround yourself with good people who can complement your weaknesses. And once I got past the fact that, I'm not perfect, I could make mistakes and rely on some of the team members to help fill in some of the skill sets that I'm missing. It really helped me be more successful as an individual and also in executives' eyes, me being able to, manage more and more.
One of the things that you describe and put emphasis on for project management has a lot of overlap with another field that we had earlier in our career chat series of management consulting. And in management consulting, the first thing that you do is you just have to listen to your client and kind of understand what the problem is. And I can imagine you with other leadership, they're coming to you, they're talking to you about what they need and what they want at the end of the day. And you're absorbing all of that before you even start to really come up with a plan on how to attack that issue. But with that said, if you were going to hire onto your team today, and the person didn't necessarily have previous project management experience, what else would you be looking for? Would you be looking for someone, for instance, out of the management consulting firm? What would a student do to be able to impress you and make you want them on your team?
That's a good question. So I think one of the things I would look for if someone didn't have any kind of project management experience, just really how well can they communicate? How well do they listen? If they can provide examples of situations where they had a problem, like how did they manage that problem? What was their approach? Like, project management is often a mindset that you're going to be put in positions of ambiguity, and so you need to know how to be effective at problem solving. And I wouldn't even just say effective at problem solving, but also have the kind of mindset of looking for problems before they actually become real problems. This is a trait that's a lot of from my inner circle of project management networks is, instead of doing projects to continuously fix problems, how do we use innovation and creativity and do projects to enhance our value as an organization to customers before it actually becomes a problem that we become reactive to instead of being proactive and staying ahead of those types of issues. With people who don't have a background in project management, having a good personality and relationship skills of how well do they carry themselves in conversations is extremely important. And that was something that I had to learn myself. Is if you can be amicable and if you can build relationships with others, it goes a long way for you to be able to have that kind of relationship with them, to provide resources, provide assistance to these projects, because you're going to be put into positions where you have to kind of negotiate for those resources. They have their day jobs. You have team members that have their day jobs, and then they also have to be part of these projects. And so you have to try to manage that with their direct reports. And if you don't have a good relationship with them, it becomes often more difficult to try to get that kind of support to be successful.
Thanks. I appreciate all of the in-depth descriptions that you've given. How about tools that you use in your daily job, whether they're soft skills, so some tools we already come equipped with, or there are software that you're using. What is essential to do your job as a project manager?
Yeah, so typically nowadays, there's no organization that I've heard of where, and I work with lots of project managers from business to business aspects. No one does project management by hand. You have to have a system. These are, workforce management systems, things like that. I've used in my career Microsoft Project, Google Suites. I use Teamwork. Right now, what I'm currently using is Smart Sheets to be able to manage all these different projects and resources and timelines and things like that. Otherwise, it's quite near impossible to be able to be effective in managing timelines and managing all the different information that goes into these projects, especially if there are different types of projects, like a construction compared to a system implementation, or a software development project compared to an operations process improvement. There's absolutely a necessity to be using project management systems. From the skills side, problem solving obviously is extremely valuable. Time management, planning, having the communication skills on the soft side is extremely important. Like I said earlier in this conversation, I come in and probably spend a lot of my time just communicating the next steps on all these different projects and making sure that we're keeping team members on track and proactive, because time is a constant thing and it's very unforgivable. I mean, it's very fleeting, and sometimes you can get far behind on certain tasks or a project delivery if you're not paying attention to how much time is being spent in other places, and you don't get that time back. So having a system in place to be able to manage all the different variables that go on in project management is critical. And also having a system that automates a lot of the tedious yet very important tasks of project management. And that's key, especially when it comes to managing lots of projects.
Mm-hmm. Is automation becoming a bigger and bigger part of the role?
Absolutely. Project management, like I said, you've had traditional project management, and every industry defines project management differently. But from a global scale, it is constantly evolving, and you have all these different methodology types. Waterfall, where there's like 7 mindsets within waterfall, and that's more of the traditional mindset, system development, lifecycle, things like that. And then you have the agile umbrella, and there's 100 of those. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but Scrum, XP, lean management are just a few of what falls underneath that umbrella. And it's definitely changing to where there's not really a good playbook anymore. Like, it's just really managing all the different types of innovation that's going on. Every company is trying to do this. They're trying to be innovative. They're trying to compete against, the big box stores or the big fintechs or the big, Apples and Amazons in the world. And this is something that is going to be continue to grow and be a demand out in the field for people who can really work well with the team and take ideas and really bring the value from those ideas to fruition on time and on budget.
There are a couple of different types of project managers in that you could be a specialist and work on only one type of project. Like it could be, technology related or rollouts or change management, but you're focused only on that. You're a generalist, basically. Whatever the company needs, you're going to sit down and scope with them and try to find a solution forward. For me, to be kind of the jack of all trades generalist, you really have to have a vision, right? So somebody comes to you with this idea and says, this is what we want to do. And you kind of, in that conversation, have to see the pathway there and have to explain to them what you can and can't do. Would you say that's accurate? And if so, what do you attribute that type of vision to?
Yes, I 100% agree that is accurate. A big part of project management is linking your timeline, your resources, and all the different variables that go into it to the expectations of what that project should deliver. And at the very beginning, when you talk about vision, you're wanting to, at a high level, map out what does that vision entail and like who's the audience even? Like, is it your team members? Is it your customers? Is it both? Because that communication needs to change as well, depending on who your audience is. And with a vision at a high level, it's often not one project that delivers that vision. It's a series of projects. So now you have sequencing of, project A that feeds into project B and project C. And over time, you have the change management element of, bringing a team through this process to evolve, their roles or their services or any number of things to make sure that you're taking the vision that can be extremely grand, but also breaking it down into more manageable chunks, because then you can actually associate what those expectations are for each part of that vision. And really that's how I work with executives too, is like, hey, you have this grand idea, I think that's great, but it's not going to get done in 2 weeks. Like what are those first steps? And everyone has their expertise and their backgrounds, and that's part of project management is being able to take those grandiose ideas, the creative or innovative solutions that can often be trendy in the industry, whether it's technology or finance or construction, etc. But then mapping it out and breaking it down into like the more smaller manageable projects and understanding what the budgets are going to be for each of those and timelines, and who do we have from a resource standpoint, team members, or do we need to hire third-party vendors to help fill some of those gaps that we might have? And then you're looking at a roadmap basically. And companies like Apple and Microsoft, like everyone has roadmaps. Like they all have their services, their product roadmaps, and it's all broken down in little pieces. And that's project management in a nutshell there. So when you talk about vision, it's really getting alignment from the top with the executives, because they all have marketing and finance and account, like they all have like their own agendas, and it's all often in good intentions, but having those resources kind of divided up in silos. And this is something that I think the industry is catching on, and why project management is being much more emphasized as a huge important role within an organization, because my role is to centralize all of that and say, well, we have this project that the HR department wants to run, but it actually impacts these other teams as well. So a lot of the issues that organizations see nowadays is that if they implement a project, but they don't include that in the overall larger vision, they might create a solution, and that might be good, but they also might cause complications for other departments that they didn't realize were impacted because they weren't brought in on the vision at the very beginning. And so now you have cleanup projects that cost more time, that cost more money, and team members' hours being taken away from the operational side. And it really becomes a very exciting puzzle piece to work with them to really kind of break that down and take the necessary steps to bring that vision to a realization at the end.
Great. I really like that explanation, especially of the downstream effects that most people don't really consider when they're thinking about the projects that they're about to run. Let's shift gears a little bit. So I really appreciate your background. I appreciate all of the background about project management. I want to start talking about advice for our students, but let's start with your educational background. You have your MBA from Purdue. I know you have a PMP certificate and probably some other kind of certifications. And I think that you started on accounts working, project management for accounts like Whirlpool before you got either of those things. Can you just walk us through a little bit on when you decided to get your education, your PMC certificate, why you decided to do it, and also why you even decided to go in project management to begin with? What was the motivating factor for that?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the education one, the education background, and kind of like share the timeline of events from certifications and at what point of company A and company B I was with. So bear with me. If I get off track, feel free to reel me back in. So I was what you considered as probably a non-traditional student. I did start, going to college right at 18, but had other passions that I wanted to follow. And so I, stopped college and followed those passions and then decided, I don't think this is what I wanted to do anymore. So I got back into, getting my undergrad and then pursuing my master's in business administration 2 years after that. And so I think I was in the same bucket as a lot of students find themselves in, like, what do I want to do with my life? And I remember having a conversation with one of my brother, actually, who's a very successful person and manages very large accounts, retail stores and things like that. And he told me, he was trying to give me some advice, and he was saying, well, you should specialize. You should specialize and go into like engineering, or you should, become computer information systems or one of those. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to be stuck in like the one type of specialty. And, he said, well, the jack of all trades is a master of none. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like, I'm trying to divide up my time so much and trying to, figure out what I want to do. Maybe mastering something is important. But what I came to realize was, there is a second part of that phrase. And I don't know if you know this, Greg, but the true phrase is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So, it really kind of made me realize that, I didn't want to just do something, the same thing over and over again in my life. And that's where I started to kind of branch off and going into the business of administration side of things. And with that, learning finance and, strategic management, accounting, like all those different fields. I was already in an entry-level position at a supply chain when I started that path. And so sales, marketing, and really my title was sales and marketing associate at that time. And I was working with some big box stores and really just trying to understand how an organization even runs at that point. And the business administration degree that I was working on, I used that information to apply. And this is before my project management career really became my focus. And the reason why I'm telling this story is it was, titles don't really matter. I think it matters of what you learn and what you apply and how you bring value to any kind of organization. Because even though my title at that time was sales and marketing associate, it was a small private family owned company and out of Coloma, Michigan. And they decided, freight's not going to be the thing that we do, successfully moving forward. We have to branch out, and e-commerce was their answer. They wanted to start a drop shipping program. Well, that's not sales. Like creating a drop shipping program and having UPS installations and then changing like the manufacturing floor to be set up to be able to drop ship straight to the store, and having a website developed where you can have customers shop online directly to your website. That's project management. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I really started learning and reading up on project management at that point. And I got the e-commerce platform set up. We did the website. We did all kinds of different product placements on our website, graphic design, all the different elements, and even the marketing for it too, to all the customers, to let them know that we had this channel now, setting up the supply lines for it. I mean, all these different things that you wouldn't think a sales or marketing associate did is what I did. And that was the moment I was like, I want to do project management. And so I left that position, and that's where I really dived into looking at what else do I need to do to become a successful project manager. And I looked at the CAPM, which is a certificate associate of project management, which is kind of the precursor of the PMP, which is the gold standard from the PMI organization worldwide. Pretty much everyone, even if you go to the UK or China, they recognize what the PMP is. And so I didn't have the experience though. I mean, there has some requirements, prerequisites that are needed before you can actually do that. And so the often ism, what comes first, the experience or the certificate or the education? In project management, it's the experience first, but that doesn't mean you can't stop learning and applying that to project management. So I went to the creative agency and actually had the title project manager at that point, and was working with Whirlpool on many of their products within the Whirlpool brand, Maytag refrigerators, dishwashers, you name it. Also worked with their newer brands like Gladiator. I don't know how many of you know this, but Whirlpool actually does garage products too, known as the Gladiator program. And so that was relatively new. And even some of their new innovative think tank products that they were putting out, worked on those as well. And so that was my first time actually experiencing an agile workshop where things were extremely fast paced. And I was working on my certification for the CAPM, which, by the way, anyone can take this right now. All you really need is a high school diploma. You don't need any years of experience. You got to take a formal training course to get like PDUs or credits to be able to be eligible to take the exam. And then the PMP, you actually need 3 years of project management proven experience, documented experience to be able to take the PMP. And so that was a path I set forth, building my experience and knowledge at the creative agency. And that's where I left that company. I didn't want to, work on just solely on marketing type projects, and joined a financial institution, and again had the project manager title. And that's where I got more involved in helping set up and creating a PMO, which is more of a strategic large implementation of changing the culture of the credit union to manage all types of projects. And at that point is where I got my PMP, because I had the 3 years of experience and all the formal education to back it up. And I didn't stop there. Like I said, as a general project manager, you need to know a lot of different types of methodologies, because waterfall doesn't work for everything. You have to have some agile concepts. You have to have some lean management concepts like Black Belt, Six Sigma. So I became certified as well in SDLC, System Development Lifecycle, Scrum methodology, and the PMP, alongside of working on my MBA with Purdue. I know it's not San Diego, but I started my job building the PMO at the financial institution at the same time as starting day one with my MBA. And everything I took from my MBA program, I was applying to my job, because at that point I was still learning. I only had experience on marketing projects. Didn't know anything about construction, didn't know anything about IT projects, but I knew I had a passion for it, and I learned everything I could. And really, you're not going to be the expert on everything. That's where the team comes in. And if you help the team and help them be successful, they're going to help you be successful too. It's really about understanding what that vision is and being able to communicate that vision to a point where you can mobilize the team and get them excited for it, and be able to track things on time and manage the different timelines and the different projects that are happening. Because that's not what they're concerned with. They're concerned with, well, I have X, Y, and Z of my day job that I need to do, and now I have to do all this other stuff. And really, that's where the project manager comes in to help kind of shift priorities and communicate on their behalf and be like a team sponsor for them with their direct supervisors. And it's really just a lot of collaboration and working together on, moving pieces forward in the organization. Is there anything else that I need to answer that I didn't on that question? I know that was very long-winded, but it was
It was great. It's really helpful, for people who are thinking about going into this area, to kind of see how he has a different path to go. You're going to be helpful to our students. But with that said, how about some advice for our students about what you think they should do to prepare themselves outside of the classroom for a role in project management?
Well, outside the role of the class, right? Not inside, like, okay. So outside the role of the class, obviously what I did was I pursued certifications. I mean, there's formal education, there's a lot of free courses out there actually that you can just, start learning how to manage projects. I mean, it's not all about timelines and budgets, though those are extremely important pieces. You can basically take any kind of class that you've done in an MBA and apply it to project management. The PMP is definitely the path I took, because I wanted to, if you want an actual project manager title and role in the industry, you're going to see a lot of those job descriptions, PMP preferred, and we all kind of know how HR systems work nowadays. It's, screen scrapes, what's the criteria that it's looking for, and if it doesn't have that, all right, bye. And PMP is going to be one of those things that are going to want to be on resumes. And I wouldn't say specialize in any one thing. I think even if it's not project management, just learning as much as you can about everything, and learning how to be a good communicator. And just a lot of it, I spent a lot of work and time into just learning as much as I can, and being if I can truly say, if I specialized anything, I specialized in being a generalist. Knowing enough about other disciplines, accounting, finance, marketing to be dangerous, because you're going to have to work with a lot of those different types of teams anyways. And it's should be within everyone's scope to want to collaborate and want to be a good team player. And if you understand a little bit of what your audience is, what are the issues that they typically face in accounting or in marketing, you can actually drive a lot of value by sharing that different perspective, and being holistic and not such in a siloed mindset of what you typically with specialists do. And specialists, there's nothing wrong with that. They're good at what they do. They're specialists for a reason, and they definitely have a place. But for someone like me who wanted to, work their way up and be a leader and a manager and handle major projects to be able to drive positive impact into the organization and their teams, I knew that I had to, work on a lot of different things. And some of that they didn't teach in school. A lot of it they did. You'll be surprised with, your MBA courses. That's a good piece of advice I want to give is when I took operations management, I learned and made sure one thing that I wanted to take away from the use in project management was like waiting time formulas, productivity, what is risk pooling and how can I implement that and use that as a solution for some teams to help bring value to them. You'll be surprised that you don't have to be a manufacturing company. You don't have to be working in an IT company or a bank or any type of company where those typical teachings and lessons from those individual classes that are your case studies are used off of. You can apply that in anything, as long as you can see what the problem is and be able to take what you learn from your courses and apply to it. That's how I became successful. Someone who doesn't have that IT background or education, I still do IT projects. I still implement systems, and I work with programmers, and I know enough to be able to speak with them and say, well, what if you coded this or built the architecture differently? Using agile methodologies and just help making sure that they're the experts in coming up with a solution. But I'm framing it in a way where they think a little bit differently and they come to a solution themselves. Finance, if you want to do project management, finance, NPV, net present value, future value, weighted average cost of capital, ROA, ROI, all of those are measurements in project management and in budgeting and things like that. Strategic management, we talked about vision, and a lot of the principles in strategic management are literally steps prior to the project coming to fruition. It's the steps prior to those projects being created, and how do you manage those different projects and coordinating them. If you can do that well, if you can understand the starting process of what a vision is in strategic management, and then how the projects are actually the vehicles, the mechanisms to delivering those results, you're going to be able to see quicker success and trajectory in your career. I mean, I was a non-traditional student, take it from me. Had a family, had all these different, priorities and challenges in life, and went through, finished my degree, got my MBA 2 years later. And from when I started 6 years ago, I went from a sales marketing associate to now director of corporate projects at a very large financial institution. And so the path is different for everyone, but take what you learn, even outside of your classes, because you probably can find a way to apply it. It'll be valuable to someone.
As that non-traditional student, you had a family, you're driving several hours from Michigan to the campus of Purdue, I guess attending weekend classes at that time. So you probably weren't on campus as much as you would like to have been. But with that said, were there any resources that Purdue had provided for you, and how did you take advantage of those?
Yeah, so some of the resources that they provided me were, they had career counseling, their student center, um, you know, some of the things I'm saying to you now is probably verbatim, probably saying it subconsciously. Uh,
I'm sending you messages through chat that's helping.
Are you? Yeah, no, this isn't scripted, but seriously, um, working with guidance counselors and things. I even had mentors. Just working within networks and Chamber of Commerce, young professional groups, things like that. It's amazing how much networking is an emphasis in any kind of career growth. In project management, for me, I've had those mentors and I've sought out additional resources of, even from, I was kind of like the typical student who took the career tips and how do you structure your resume a certain way, and followed all of those, and I had some successes, had some failures, but you got to keep moving forward regardless, and try to use as much resource as possible to learn and grow from that.
We had a student who I referred to you earlier this semester who was changing careers, and she had a chat with you and then was successful at landing a PMP role. I don't know how much influence you actually had on that, but I would have to say that your advice probably was very helpful to her. I know she credits you a lot for helping her. Mentors, wherever they come from, are really kind of key and important, in our lives. And not everybody in your network necessarily will be a mentor. You can learn a lot from people who aren't necessarily mentors too. But with that said, how have the mentors in your life kind of shaped your career?
Well, a lot of the mentors that I've had led me down the path professionally and non-professionally. From a professional standpoint, the mentors that I had were like within my industry. I got involved with the PMI organization, the local chapter, and there was a lot of different project managers there from all different types of industries. So you really get to learn a lot from interacting with them. And this is where I said, everyone's in the same shoebox here. They all have the same issues. They might be selling car parts, they might be selling loans, they might be selling, or some of them are just, in nuclear energy, but they all run into the same issues. And I think, some people on this call who are tenured employees at their organizations, and if you have gone into other organizations too or other industries, you're probably seeing a lot of the same things that I'm talking to you right now about. But the mentors within my own industry, financial institutions, was pivotal to my success, because I got to learn all the things not to do from their own personal experiences. And so it was a great way to share ideas and say, well, what if we did this, differently? And just having someone who's been through the ringer and who has done probably many of the things that you're going to do just because of where you're at in your career. It's great to know what those outcomes are, because then you can take that information and have those crucial conversations with other leaders in the organization, and they've probably been through that too. And it's a good way to collaborate and also show wisdom in your experience. And a lot of that to me was, learning from other mentors and, finding better solutions and not having to spend the time or energy on repeating mistakes that they have done.
Some of the advice I give to students on the networking end is going out and finding people who are doing what you want to do. So if you want to be a project manager, go find other project managers, meet them, talk to them about how they do their job and what they do. find people who can hire you into that job. So maybe a director of corporate projects, could be somebody that you want to talk with. But that's not necessarily a natural thing for everybody to do, is to go out and meet other professionals and to strike up, type of conversations. And a lot of people fear, like, well, how do I reach out to them? And, I kind of show them those steps, but they fear that, well, why would somebody like Taylor Kearney, who's the director of corporate projects, want to talk with me? What are your thoughts on that? A student reaches out to you and wants to talk to you about project management. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm 100% open with it because, I mean, in project management, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have the people that I was able to go to and bounce ideas off of and learn from. My mentors, like I said, were pivotal in helping me grow professionally and personally in my life. And, I've done it several times before. I don't think I mentioned it on this call, but I was the VP of education certification with my PMI chapter. So working with other organizations, working with students, whether it was at Notre Dame University or other companies and engineers and things like that. And I've done that. So 100% open to it. And I think it's something that we need to put more emphasis on from a company or industry standard. And I know universities are doing that. You guys are doing that too and pushing it, but it hasn't got the traction like it should have, and especially, networking is extremely important. And if you're wanting to meet people and know, who's hiring, and all of that was covered by going to those chapter meetings and me learning about them. And oh, we're hiring here, and that's who they want to look for first, is the people that they know, the people that they learn from and communicate with. And mentors are great at doing that. And again, I know you sent me a student, and that was a very successful outcome for her, and I'm happy for her. And I'm, very willing and open to having other students reach out to me to see what I can do, because after all, at my core in project management, I want to deliver value to others.
That's pretty awesome, and I do appreciate you working with our students here at San Diego State. What if you got an email today from someone who's graduating the MBA program at Purdue? Said, hey, Taylor, I see that you're an alum of Purdue. You're working at Commonwealth Credit Union. I'm applying for a marketing role over there. Would you mind introducing me to the hiring manager? A, would you do it? And B, how effective do you think you introducing that person to the hiring manager would be at helping that student get a role with your company?
Well, I think it's always good to have someone who's working within the company be able to vouch for people. Like I said, networking is extremely important, and especially, someone that you have connections with who have that, and it shouldn't always be this way, but the title and authority and the relationships already with those individuals in the company, it definitely makes it a lot easier, especially with technology nowadays. And we're right in the middle of a very interesting period too, where it's the great resignation and all companies are looking for hiring. But you put yourself really up in front of the line if you know people and contact them. And it works better too if you get to know them first. And that's something that I've to find good people nowadays is something that is being paid attention to a little bit more from definitely my industry side of things, finding good people and hiring them. And especially when you have other employees that are looking at retiring, there's a lot of opportunities opening up in certain industries. So credit unions being one of them.
Taylor, the advice that you've shared today really has been phenomenal. I appreciate it. I know it's going to help out a lot of our students who are looking to go into project management, or even some of our students who are already project managers but are looking to move up within their organizations or expand their list, maybe going from specialists to more generalists. With that said, do you have any other last piece of advice that you'd like to share with the students before we close out today?
Well, despite what you want to do in life, whether it's project management or some other kind of field, the last bit of advice I can do and want to make sure I drive home is, whatever you decide to do, make sure you're always delivering value and making sure that it's value that people can recognize and appreciate. If you do that, despite whatever kind of career that you end up in or position, you're going to see success. And if you can deliver value to others, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for you.
That's a really great piece of advice. And I'd like to add, learning how to articulate that value is pretty essential for others to help them to recognize it. And that's something my office can help with. So if you're having trouble figuring out where you add value, come have a chat with me. Taylor, I'm going to let you go for the day, but thank you so much. It's always good to have you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. This was great, and I hope it helps out a lot of your students.
Yep. You have a good rest of your day, Taylor.
You too. Bye.